So
It's simple.
my name's Jeremy Feasel. I'm a senior game designer. I'm here to talk a little bit about the demon invasions, the Broken Shore introduction, the Dark Whisperers events that are going on in Stormwind and Orgrimmar. And John is our expert at Demon Hunters.
Yeah, I'm John LeCraft, senior game designer. And like Jeremy said, I'll be here to talk about Demon Hunters.
Okay, it's very nice. We have read you are nice designers of World of Warcraft. Okay, so we're going to start talking about the Demon Hunters. The first question is, what is your expectation about Demon Hunters? What do you inspire to create this class?
Well, the inspiration was pretty natural this time. I mean, first of all, Demon Hunters are something that we wanted to add to the game for a very long time. I want to say 11 years ago when I first started, I remember Tom Chilton, who's now our game director, saying, "Hey, is there any way you can figure out how to get the Demon Hunter in the game?" And at the time, we kind of brainstormed on it and realized we didn't really have it all together and ready to go, and given the timeline, so it just kind of got put off. And then here we are with Legion, the Burning Crusade's back, Illidan's involved. This is just the absolute perfect time to do it.
It's the perfect moment for include that, because it's true. The people was asking for this class a long time ago.
Oh yeah.
I think you take a lot of abilities from this from other classes. Is this true, or what do you think?
I think if you look at any class in our game, you can say, oh, well, isn't that just, isn't Fireball just Shadow Bolt or whatever? But there is a unique spin on all of them, and there's a unique look, and how that combination of abilities comes together is what makes the class unique. There's only so many mechanics that you can create before it starts to feel weird. That being said, I do think, they do have their own flavor and their own personality for the Demon Hunter. They fit very well, and with the combat revamp, they feel amazing. Yep. They feel like Demon Hunter. So even if some of them do, if people are like, oh, this is just that, I think there's some subtleties there that might be not being appreciated.
We're kind of lucky that at the same time as we were looking at a lot of what our class fantasies were and concentrating the coolness of each individual class, we got to add the class at the same time. So we got to take some of those other abilities that were maybe concentrated into class talents or slightly changed to fit class fantasies and then shunt them over to Demon Hunters. But at the same time, that's why we only did 2 specs for Demon Hunters. Maybe John could talk a little bit more about how that decision came to
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, why only two?
Well, and again, that was, as we were looking at these class fantasies, one of the questions we asked, we would look at a class and we'd say, hey, what would happen if we took these 2 specs and we squished them together? Would that have made a cooler spec? And that's not certainly something we're going to do to older classes. But given the opportunity on a new one, we said, hey, well, why are we going to do a range class or a range spec when what we can do is instead incorporate some of those elements into the DPS spec, into the melee spec, which felt the most natural to do, the melee spec. And I think we have, much better concentrated coolness. We have a better spectrum of abilities, and in general, just feels right. I think that's actually something we might have even done differently in the past. If we were to do WoW again, some classes may actually only end up with 2 specs.
Yeah, but Demon Hunters are a little bit unique in that they are a mobility-based melee class with some medium-range abilities and some abilities that cause them to fly up in the air and slam down or move behind their opponents. I think what you're going to find is that they're very unique combinations of gameplay elements that make them feel different than all of the other classes.
Yeah, so simply, you think this spec is now out, but because have ranged attacks and melee attacks, not?
I wouldn't say it's half and half. I think they have, some ranged attacks. Like I-Beam has some good range. It's 20-yard range on everything. Their Interrupt has a range, and that's more of a, a utility thing if you think about it. And then throw glaive, which most classes do actually have a ranged pull attack, and then of course they have the mobility to get into range.
They have a lot of interesting things to do in 20 yards, but even just moving around with them in the game world, double jumping and gliding your way around the outdoor zones is a lot of fun. It feels really cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. Do you have many problems with double jump? Or
you know what? I was actually one of the first opponents to double jump because of that exact question, because we were thinking, wow, how many places can you get to that we didn't intend you to get to? Yep. And I think in the end, we kind of turned that idea on its head. John can talk a little bit more about this, but it was more, wow, how many places can you get to with double jump? That's cool.
There's definitely, and those will still exist, and there's going to be some crazy things that people can do, and that's okay. Some of those we're perfectly fine with. If they're egregious or really bad, we'll look into fixing the level or whatever.
If it feels broken, we'll fix it. But if you feel a little overpowered, we're probably not going to fix it. And
another thing that people would talk about when we were discussing double internally is, what's the gameplay there? And, does it actually do an attack or whatever? And ultimately, we wanted to keep it simple and just the way that World of Warcraft is designed, especially the outdoor areas, it is automatically an amazing tool for getting around, for getting over ledges, for getting, taking little shortcuts.
We think too about the results of the D8. I want to say it's a powerful class. It will be so difficult to get all the power of the Demon Hunter. I refer, when you play, you can play simply and get another DPS, but it will be hard get more damage from Demon Hunters.
I would say the skill gap in a novice player versus a hardcore player is definitely going to be present. Certainly, as we've been looking at logs. From internally and people playing on the beta, we see big difference in DPS already. So there's definitely a skill differential there. I think you can achieve a lot, though, with a simple rotation if you want it. If you want more complexity, you can choose the talents that add that. But overall, we wanted it to be an approachable class for anybody who's just excited about the fantasy, but still give that depth for players who have been playing the game for a long time.
Yeah. So we can get a very nice DPS with DID or a nice tanking skill. About tanking, what do you think about the tank spec? Because so many players tell it's just too weak respect the other tanks.
So this is something that's funny. I actually bring this up with our balance guy almost on a daily basis. I'm like, how are you feeling about tanks? And he's like, I think they're in a really good place. A lot of the feedback is coming because we changed our tanking and healing model for everyone kind of at the same time that the Demon Hunter tanks went in, and maybe even a little bit after. So if they are comparing like an older live tank to the Demon Hunter, they might feel a little squishy, they might feel different, but we feel like overall they are in a good place, that they are durable and they have that burst mobility when they need it.
I think it's worth keeping in mind at this point that we're not done tuning Legion.
Yeah.
We've got, really cool invasions going on. We've got great big world events, and then we have a whole nother 10 levels to go. We have a ton of artifact levels. There's a lot more power to be gained by each individual player before you're doing mythic raids, and we'll continue doing tuning as necessary during that process.
Okay. So do you think about change any skill now from any actual skill?
I actually think the Demon Hunter tank might be maybe about in the middle as far as skill is concerned. There are easier tanks, and even though we wanted them to be a little bit on the easier side, they probably ended up more in the middle. I would say.
And I think it's going to largely depend on what our raid boss designers have ended up doing in terms of raid boss abilities, because demon hunters have to sacrifice a little bit of mobility under certain situations, because a lot of those mobility abilities have cooldowns. Knowing just when exactly in the raid to use your mobility cooldowns becomes a skill differentiating element for that class, similar to monk tanks.
Okay. So do you think you will change any ability to the demon hunter to DPS or tank abilities you have now from the monk?
Well, I think how the general player reaction and how people end up playing the demon hunter in that 3 weeks after they go live for anybody who pre-ordered, we're going to be watching that closely, and that will be an opportunity to say, oh, you know what, we should probably change this or that. One of the spots we've kind of got an eye on is like Havoc survivability row for talents. Also, maybe a few other tank talents we've been looking at. Baseline stuff is pretty solid, but we're also not going to be making any huge changes. It'll probably mostly be tuning with numbers.
On respect to the lore, what do you think about the demon hunters? They are feared in all Azeroth because their demoniac powers. Do you think it will be any problem in the factions because this fair?
Well, I think that's one of the coolest parts about playing a demon hunter, is that you get to experience the other half of the lore that maybe you didn't see before. We used to think that demon hunters were our enemies, but all players are going to be playing through this crazy, I call it crazy because it's one of the craziest quest lines I've ever seen done in WoW, where you play as Illidan, the raid boss, and it's just wacky. You get to see the other half of this coin. You get to see what his end game was. And one of the reasons we wanted to bring Illidan and demon hunters back was that we thought there was a great story to tell there that hasn't been finished. And you might even find out that Illidan's story is really just getting started. It's an awesome lore position to be in because we kind of know where we're going with it, and you haven't seen a lot of this, but it's been a little bit alluded to in the fact that I believe our assistant game director mentioned that we have some pretty cool patch plans coming up. You're going to see an interesting arc for the Demon Hunters that is something that I'm really excited for us to be able to tell.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting to explore.
When you will include this, for example, they don't be affected by the night elves. How the demon hunters will be affected by the night elves? Do you think?
Like how they're going to integrate into the society, and be accepted by everybody. I don't want to spoil anything because it's crazy, but you'll see.
Okay. We will see it. So there is a point in initial DH missions that we have to choose our first champion. According, we empathize with the blind devotion to Illidan, or with the final don't justify the means. Although this choice don't affect to the history, it's so fine the possibility of choice to give a personal touch to our chat. Is in your plans are more personal touch like this?
And I think that's part of the lore that's a little bit interesting, is that you can see where Illidan's arc is going. You also have your own arc, your own character. You can customize yourself in your own way with the order halls and with the champions, like you're talking about, that you want to take out into the world. I think that you leave that up to the player to tell their own story. You give them the beginning of that story and you say, this is your origin story. And then how you want to play it out in the world, who you want to be, is completely up to you.
Okay. Last question. Do you think we are prepared for Legion?
I'm not sure. It's interesting because I'm not sure how many players have spoiled themselves with regard to the end of the Broken Shore, with what happens afterwards, with the quests that unlock during the pre-launch, with the fact that we're taking over entire zones, and even level 10s are going to have all their quest givers destroyed because the Legion is here and they're going to kill you.
Yeah.
And I think something that we've heard a little bit of feedback on is, I died in Legion Invasions, or I died on the Broken Shore. Yeah. You're going to die. And so are some other people. So you better get prepared.
I got spoiled. Because I have the beat, so I know.
So maybe you're prepared.
Works.
And
I think I'm prepared, but I'm not sure. I'm not so sure.
we want it to feel like we're being overwhelmed by that third week of the pre-launch when every zone is under invasion every couple of hours and your whole map is green and you have dreadlords running around Stormwind and Orgrimmar. You're going to feel like you're losing, and that is completely intended.
So thank you very much, Jeremy and Luis.
That was
Jonathan.
John. Okay, sorry. I have a list over here. I don't know why.
We replaced
I don't listen at the start of the question. Sorry so much, John. Thank you very much for this interview for GSWO, Spanish fan site. Do you want to say anything to the Spanish viewers?
Just, we're listening. We love all of our international community. I don't know if you heard me comment the last time I did a Twitch thing, but like, we read the EU forums and we get regular reports from the EU community managers and the worldwide community managers. So please continue to give us your feedback. We are listening.
Yep.
Okay, so we continue giving feedback. Thank you very much for the interview. And I hope to talk with you in other moment and do other interviews. Thank you very much for this interview. I think the Demon Hunters are here now. They are here, As in few days we can feel this. I can't express this. I want
finally
to do Demon Hunter.
Yeah. Yeah, it was great talking with you, man. Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. See you. Bye.